How's it going, my dudes? It's Birch here, and today I have my first episode of my zombies lore videos. And I'm really excited to do this because I love zombies, like I've already said. There's another Memories trailer that's going to be coming out soon, and I'll have a breakdown of that as soon as it hits, as soon as that date drops, so make sure that you're subbed so you can see that. But I wanted to do this because some of my friends didn't know what I was talking about when I was talking through the Dembski Memory trailer breakdown. And so what I'm going to do with this series is I'm not going to focus on characters at first, but I'm also not going to focus on World at War Black Ops 1 because most people that are into zombies know what happened during World at War Black Ops 1. And if you don't, there are plenty of other people who have made videos on it back then, much better videos than I could make. Very straightforward storyline, very straightforward stuff. But where I'm going to start my tale is at the end of Origins. Alright, so let's get it on. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to start with is explaining Origins. Alright, so Origins is set in World War I France, 1917, in an alternate reality where Richtofen is not a cunt. And so the whole premise of Origins and the Origins timeline is to undo the damage that was caused by Black Ops 1's ending with the destruction of the Earth and the blowing up of the Earth, etc., etc. And Origins serves as an introduction to who these characters are, their motives, their differences from the original versions that we saw in World at War and Black Ops 1. Origins doesn't really have much relation to the storyline as we have it now, as much as people assume. The way I look at it is, like I said, just simply an introduction. So we see that in this timeline, Richtofen and Maxis are very close, and Maxis was infected with whatever disease that made the zombies. And we see at the beginning of the Origins cutscene, Richtofen operating on Maxis and taking his brain out to put it in the Maxis drone, which I will show here. So we know from this fact that Maxis and Richtofen are not enemies in this universe and are in fact closely working together, which is further solidified in the entirety of Black Ops 3's life cycle. Now, as you play through Origins, you learn of the secret of the staves, and that I will go into in a couple more minutes after I'm finished talking about Origins. So Origins wraps up with an incredible Easter egg which totally turns everything on its head, and I'll play that now.
From that day forward, they knew that Samantha would keep them safe. Forever.
Getting everything wrong. I told you before, their eyes should be blue.
It's my turn, Eddie. I can do whatever I want.
But you don't even know how to play properly. Girls don't know enough about zombies.
What's the choice of it, children? Make sure the windows are locked before you come down to the basement.
We'd better do what your dad says. I didn't even get my turn.
Tomorrow, Eddie. You get to make the rules. I promise. Come on, Fluffy.
I wish the heroes in our stories were real, Sam.
I know what you mean. But we will make everything okay. My dad says he has a plan.
Alright, so from here we know that we are introduced to the concept of the children in the house. And the children represent innocence, and the house represents somewhere you can be safe ideologically, mentally, or physically, just like the frozen forest in the campaign. Now we're going to move on to Black Ops 3, and to do that we actually have to go back. A long time. From Gorod Krovi Ciphers and Horizon Drac Ciphers and Desponoshima Ciphers, we learn of the Chronorium, a book where Richtofen learns of his plan, but also gives us information on the beginnings of the universe in this game, and the mythical beings that protect and try to destroy it, called the Keepers and the Apothecans. So I'm going to pull up a couple different ciphers from Gorod Krovi, talking about the Chronorium. Credit to guys on the CODZombies Reddit, obviously. I don't have enough time to decipher these things on my own. Alright, so here we go. Alright, so from the Chronorium, we can learn a couple things about the beginning of the universe and some of the artifacts that we see throughout Black Ops 3, starting with the Summoning Key. Excerpt 349561-223. It says, the summoning key is one of the oldest artifacts in all creation. It was used by the first one to mix all the dimensions with life, giving each one its unique balance. Under certain circumstances, it has the ability to form bridges between dimensions, allowing the transfer of life forces back and forth. It resides in the 63rd dimensions of creation. Now, this is really important to the summoning key because we know that not only can it take life, but can also give life back to dead people. And maybe some sort of bridge for DLC 4 Revelations? Who knows? Jason Blundell has said before that we have not seen the full use of the summoning key, or even close to any of its powers, so I hope to see some kick-ass shit out of this little golden sphere. Alright, moving on, we go to the way of the Keepers and the Apothecans. Alright, in the beginning, there were only the Keeper. But then, corruption of the dark ether leached its way into the realm and twisted the minds of some of the Keepers. These Keepers turned to shadows of their former selves and eventually became the Apothecans. Alright, so there's a little bit more information. We know that the Keepers were once, that's all there were. But through the dark ether, some of the Keepers became the Apothecans. And we see an example of this in Der Eisendrache when the Keeper becomes corrupted. And we have to fight the giant Keeper, which is not actually a Keeper, but is actually an Apothecant. Pretty crazy to think. Alright, here is a huge one. It's a long one too, so bear with me. Once the Great War ended with the defeat of the Apothecans, the Keepers ascended to become the wards of all universes. The surviving Apothecans were cast out, banished to the dark ether beneath creation. After eons of exile in the dark ether, the Apothecans evolved into twisted creatures that now bear little resemblance to their Keeper brethren. The Apothecan's ceaseless desire is to re-enter creation to consume and corrupt all the universes. It is the Keepers that guard against these perpetual attempts to re-enter creation and guard against any beings that may have fallen under the influence of the Apothecans. That was from Chronorium Excerpt 254-371-979. Alright, so another huge passage that we learn a lot from. So we know that after a while, the Apothecans became things like the Margwa and the massive sky hentai in Shadows of Evil. And they were cast into the dark ether, kept there, locked away again by the Keepers. Alright, so there was some sort of huge battle between the Apothecans and the Keepers, which the Keepers won, cast the Apothecans out, and the world was saved for a time. We fast forward a couple hundred or maybe 1,000 years, it's not really quite sure, and we end up in the Middle Ages, in medieval times, when we have the Wolf King from Der Eisendrache fight alongside Pablo Marinus and the Primus versions of our characters to defeat the Apothecans once again in the Great Battle, not the Great War, casting the Apothecans out, and the Origins characters disappear, and the king is told to build his castle on Der Eisendrache. Alright, and so we know this from a very, very long cipher. Alright, here we go. My name is Pablo, or at least I think it is, or was. I don't know anymore. I have been locked away, held prisoner in the cell for many months by German scientists. They keep experimenting on me, pumping me full of some blue liquid divinium. I think it is reasonable for the repeated visions I have been having, which I swear look and feel real. In this vision, my name is Pablo Marinus, and I am a knight coming back from the Crusades. I fight in a great battle against strange demon-like creatures who are trying to devour the earth. At one point, it appears I am doomed, trapped in the tentacles of a great three-headed beast, when suddenly 4 knights decimate it with magical elemental staves, saving me from certain death. There are otherworldly creatures that fight on our side against the demons. The creepy thing is that the sigils on their tunics resemble the one I noticed on stones here at the castle as I was being brought to my cell. I just hope I can eventually find a way to escape this. Rip Pablo. He does not escape. Alright, so from this cipher, we know that Pablo Marinus was experimented on and made to induce hallucinations of the Great Battle, where he was a knight in the Crusades, fighting against the Apothecans with the Keepers. And at one point, a Margwa was about to kill him when the 4 Primus versions of our characters come back and destroy the Margwa and save him. And for those of you who don't know what the Primus versions of our characters, well, we don't either. No one does. Except that there was a scrap of paper that was found in Origins which shows our characters, 4 characters, Nikolai, Richtofen, Dempsey, and Shtakio, and they have old medieval armor on and the original versions of the Origin staffs. So we have to remember that the Origin staffs are not the original versions, they are simply replicas built by Maxis. Alright, let's move on to scrap number 2. While I consider myself to be a brave king in battle, I will tell you, my son, that those 4 were the bravest warriors I have ever seen. I had the privilege to fight alongside them in the great battle many years ago where we defeated the creatures from beyond and the Dead Eaters. They disappeared after we claimed victory, never to be heard from again. The last thing they told me was to build my castle here in this very location before they disappeared. Alright, so something interesting to note here is that this king that is talking to his son is not the Wolf King that we see in the Dryzen map, but it is the same king, just in a parallel universe. In the same way that we can have multiple Dempseys exist, we have multiple of this king exist across multiple different realities and multiple different universes. So the one in Dryzen dies in the battle, which you see through the paintings in the wolf bow. In the Dryzen version, we see the king preparing for battle with the 2 hounds by his side. In the next painting, we see him charging into battle with one of his hounds, and one of the hounds is already dead in the foreground. The third picture, we see the giant space cunt coming in to fuck everyone's shit up. And in the fourth picture, we see the king has died. And that's actually the premise behind the wolf bow in Dryzen, which I will come back to some other time and do an in-depth lore look at each map. But yeah, so that king does end up dying, as we see through the paintings. But this version, he lives, along with Pablo Marinus and the premise versions of our characters. Alright, so from here we know that the premise versions of our characters told the Dryzen king to build his castle on that site. And that is the end of the pre-history segment of the Black Ops 3 story. Whew, that was a lot in one take. Alright, now let's move on to Black Ops 3. And here we see Shadows of Evil as the first map. And so, in Shadows of Evil, the Apothicons have been kept out for a very long time, and the Keepers have guarded against them and successfully kept them out of the realm. But in Shadows of Evil, we have 4 characters who have sinned, and they are tricked into letting the Apothicons back into the dimensions. So, by completing the rituals, for some reason, the Shadow Man is able to bring the Apothicons back into creation and into the world scale once again. And Richtofen knew this was going to happen, and he was guarding against it, so he had been preparing for several years after Origins as a way to deal with this, send the Apothicons back, fix the multiverse and fractured universes, and set us back on a one timeline. No crazy shit going on, all just one simple, singular timeline. And throughout Black Ops 3, each Easter egg is geared towards bringing another version of ourselves that Richtofen needs back into his control through the summoning key. So at the end of Shadows of Evil, Richtofen steps in and retrieves the summoning key from the Keeper and has a plan to use it to fix the universe. Now, the Apothicon and Keeper story kind of takes a back seat at this point, but they are still important because Keepers show up in every single map next. So, going to Dryzen, we see that the Keeper, who is summoned back, is corrupted into an Apothicon, and we have to fight this Apothicon in order to retrieve the summoning key. And once we do, we get Dempsey 1.0's Soul, who is not the Dempsey we played as in World at War Black Ops 1. Remember that. Also, another thing of worthy notice here, in every single map in Black Ops 3 we revisit an old minor character that gets some more details and some sort of final ending. In Dryzen we have Dr. Groff returning, and in Gorod Krovi we see the return of Birch. We move on to Zetsubo no Shima. Once we're in Zetsubo no Shima, we do the same thing, but we get Takio 1.0 Soul. But that isn't the end for Zetsubo no Shima. No, it is not, because something else very important happens that I myself misinterpreted when I first heard it. Now, at the end of the Zetsubo no Shima Easter egg, we can hear Richtofen say something like this.
3 down, 1 to go. Guess it's you next, Nikolai.
Nein, there is something else we must do. There is a chain of events that must be set in motion.
Okay, gotta admit, I Didn't see that one coming.
Call it our insurance policy, in case we don't like where we end up.
So Richtofen has his insurance policy in the form of the blood vials. He already had his own blood vials from the Mob of the Dead crew, but now every other character has a set of 2 as well. We don't know where they came from or what they will be used for, but what we do know is that they are very, very important. I have my own theories and ideas on them, but I will save that for another video. And this brings us to the final map and where we are currently right now, Gorod Krovi. Now we finally got Nikolai 1.0 Soul after a moment where Nikolai 2.0 was almost killed, and I thought that was the route they were going to take with it. But they didn't. We have all of our 2.0 characters still together. And Richtofen sends all of the souls that he's collected up to Maxis, except something is missing.
The souls have been collected, Maxis. We will see you soon.
I hope you caught what was missing, because I definitely did the first time I ever saw this. It was the first thing I noticed about this. Yep, that's right, Richtofen's soul is in fact missing. We see him kill himself in the giant, but it is very obvious that this either wasn't the right one, or Richtofen is holding something back or lying. Now, we know from Dr. Monty, who we'll be getting into in another episode, that Richtofen is already in the house, and that Richtofen cannot hear Monty. So we're setting ourselves up for some sort of schism in DLC 4, which is shown at the end of the Gorod Krovi Easter egg. So yeah, we have our name for DLC 4, Revelations. We have our origin style font, very cool. We have the rumors of Egypt, we have the rumors of the staffs, we have a bunch of rumors swirling around of speculation, a bunch of hype. This is going to be the end of our zombies experience as we know it, and I have very high hopes for this map. So in today's episode, the very first of the series, we went over the history of the Black Ops 3 story from Origins to now. If there's anything I missed, make sure to leave a comment. If there's anything in particular you want to see in a future episode, make sure to leave that in a comment as well. Make sure to leave a like, because the more likes this video gets, the more I know you guys want to see another episode. Make sure to sub so you can see when the next video comes out, as well as the other content that I post here on the channel. I hope you guys are having a great day. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next video.
So, first question we have here is from Birch Song, and his question is, have you ever accidentally nutted? Alright, we're gonna move on.
Answer the fucking question, you little fucking cunt.